you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm well. I'm so happy.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
So my first question is that you did not have the traditional childhood experience. You were mentally, physically, sexually abused, and you often watch television programs like you had mentioned in the book Leave It to Beaver, because you longed for that sense of family and desire to be a part of one. However, as a child going through all of those things, you were incredibly strong-willed. Where did that passion and strength come from at such a young age?
Well, I think prior to, me being abducted, I think it just come from out of necessity. I had two younger brothers that, I was all they had. And so I think it was very, very important for me to be present for them, or there was nobody there for them at all. So I don't think I was really given much choice but to be strong. I don't know really how strong I truly was. I think it was probably more of an act than it was really just, I think it was just, I was the only one that could be there and do anything. I was the one that cooked. I was the one that cleaned. I was the one that got us ready for school. I was the one that we had one or two pair of pants each. I was the one that would go to yard sales and find clothes for us to wear. I was the one that did all this. So I had to be very resourceful. I think that resourcefulness kind of has spawned over to my business abilities now. But I think it was just more necessity. I just had to do it. There was no choice but to do it. In my situation, I don't think there was a choice.
Right.
I think in my mind, I knew I had to accomplish this.
Right.
So I gave myself no choice.
So when you say when you were abducted, how old were you?
11. So at 11 years old, I ran away. I crawled in the luggage rack of a Greyhound bus in Memphis, Tennessee. We lived in a trailer park there in Memphis. And I just was trying to get away. I was kind of at my breaking point. I watched some pretty horrific things, not only happening to me and my brothers, but more importantly, what's happened to my mother, just to the point where, I still love my mom, though she wasn't much of a mother. I still loved her. I didn't like seeing the things she was going through, but she put herself in those situations. But still I had to watch it, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So, there was a situation happened where a guy was and I don't remember all the details of it. I just remember where I was at. And I remember me and my two brothers were sitting on a bed in a hotel room, and I don't remember who was there or how they got there, or how they got in, but I just remember hearing a bubbling sound in the bathroom, like a gargling sound. And I got up, because we were sitting there watching one of the only 3 channels that there were on TV at that particular time. Mm-hmm. And I walked to the bathroom and pushed the door open, and some man that was holding my mother under the water, and she was literally blue, like dying. And I had to fight him like a grown man at 11 years old. We fought through the hotel room out into the street, and I was fighting like a grown man at 11 years old. So and it actually saved my mother's life, because another 30 or 45 seconds she'd been dead. But she ended up coming out. I remember all this stuff like it was yesterday. But I remember running out and tripping over the curb, breaking her foot, and she was half naked and fighting him, trying to get him off of me. And it was and I just decided right then I had to go.
Right. But
there was a lot of those situations, not necessarily that particular story, but there was a lot of those situations. And finally, this particular one, I'd had enough. And that's when I said, that's it. I'm crawling in the luggage rack of a Greyhound bus. Oh, I didn't plan the luggage rack of the Greyhound bus. I just went to the Greyhound bus, and I didn't have money for a ticket. And the luggage rack was open, and I crawled up in it. And I had no idea where I was going or where I'd end up. Well, 12 and a half, 13, 14 hours later, I ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's when I met the preacher. So,
okay.
And it was all hunky-dory for a little while. Everything was really good until he got a hold of my mother through my grandmother, and he found out that I was pretty much alone. And that's when the real abuse began. And he carried me to a barn in Central Home, Oklahoma, and tied me to a chain. I was there for 4.8 years. The new book Unchained is coming out, and it's the tell-all story. When I originally, let me back up to tell you why Don't Look Me Up and why Unchained has happened. So Don't Look Me Up, when I wrote Don't Look Me Up, this was not a story I cared to share. When I wrote Don't Look Me Up, I told, the book's truthful, but it left a lot out.
Okay.
And the reason why we left a lot out was because it left a lot out because I wasn't in the spot to share at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It was my first book. I was running companies, I was running businesses. I was more interested in telling the story about the FBI and what they'd done to me than I really was. But I needed to give a little background information about my personal story leading into that. So, but the Unchained book that's coming out is the tell-all. I mean, it tells every detail of everything, including people's names and the locations and the whole 9 yards. Because basically what happened is the preacher led me to believe he was going to take me in, let me work at his garden center, help me, take care of me, blah, 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 blah. That's not what he did. He carried me to a bar in Central Home and tied me on a chain. I was there for 4.8 years. It took me almost 500 days to chew through the chain, break free, but I did get free. I jumped him, left him in a puddle of blood, thought I killed him. Didn't talk about it for 35 years because I thought I killed somebody. And then about about a year after I wrote, so I think I wrote Don't Look Me Up in 2012. Is that right? I think that's right.
I don't remember.
I think so. But anyway, about a year before I wrote the book, Don't Look Me Up, I was at an event. I saw him. And when I thought he was dead. And that's when I decided, hey, look, you know, this guy could be, I literally thought he was dead. And I was like, this guy could be doing this to other people. I've got to share this story. So that's when I sat down and started writing Don't Look Me Up and Unchained. And Unchained's taken many years to write. It's a very tough book. It's a tough read. But it's my story.
Now, did it, just in curiosity, did anything happen to the preacher?
No, statute of limitations out on crime.
But now he's been publicly known now, so people know what he did.
The book's been written. It's right now. It's in pre-release. We're taking pre-orders. The book's done. We're going to be releasing it. But all the money from this book goes to suicide prevention and sex trafficking. So what we're doing is we were planning on releasing it in 2020, but obviously with COVID happening, it killed the release. So we pushed the release off, and it's been very good that we did push it off because it's allowed us pre-sales to raise a bunch of money, and it's kind of, you know, everybody wants to read the book. So it's drove a lot of marketing dollars toward, or saved us a lot of marketing dollars, so people would actually buy the book. Therefore, and again, all 100% of the money goes to these charities. I get literally goes straight from the purchase off of Amazon, the purchase off my website, straight into the charity's checking accounts. So I want all the money to go, and so it's been a good thing. It not releasing as quickly has been a good thing, but when it does release, I wouldn't want to be him on the other end of that story. No, and that's what he deserves. I mean,
Absolutely.
he deserves. Yeah, he deserves a lot. He deserves a lot more than that. But
let's think about it this way. You know, your voice is hopefully going to break the chains, because I'm sure you weren't the last one, unfortunately.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if mine was just, you know, he had a circumstance that he took advantage of.
Maybe you were chained up in a basement or wherever you were chained
in a barn.
In a barn.
Yeah.
I don't think that was just a circumstance that he was going through.
I mean, I think my circumstance was, I think the situation where he could have done me might have been just a particular circumstance. Because I literally, when they called back to my mother, first it took 2 or 3 days for her to get on the telephone with him. And I remember all this vividly. But when she finally did get on the phone with him, her exact words is, "Keep the little son of a bitch, I don't want him." But literally, I heard it with my own ears. I remember it like it was yesterday. So that was her mental state she was in. And when he heard that, I think that's when everything changed between us.
Right.
Before I was working at the garden center.
That nobody cares about you. No one's going to be looking for you. And therefore, now you originally went to this city though, because your stepdad was there.
That's correct.
And then his girlfriend at the time didn't want you
around.
And so you went to stay and work at this garden center, quote unquote.
That's when I was introduced to the preacher, met the preacher, and that's when it all happened. And
so your stepdad didn't wonder where you were?
Nobody wondered where I was. Even my own father, we tried to get my father on a Clubhouse the other day to tell the story of where nobody knew where I was, and he wouldn't even do it. But he admitted it, and he texted to us, but he wouldn't get on and talk about it.
Yeah, that's
all he would say was, "I didn't know where you were." So that's all he would say. I mean, I've learned a lot since this has happened to me, you know, especially over the last year, since I've become so active in the human trafficking field. That, you know, I've learned a lot more. You know, it's mothers pushing their daughters. You know, they take their 12, 13-year-old daughters and they carry them out and prostitute them. I mean, there's all kinds of human trafficking, and it is right underneath your nose. And the problem is a lot of times we're so consumed with our lives and so consumed with what we do that we just don't see the signs of it. And and I was guilty of it too. I mean, I'm not. I was guilty of it. I mean, I went through it and still become guilty of it later in life because you get busy with business, you get busy with building a life, you get busy with your family, and all of a sudden you put blinders on to what's happening around you until it happens to you, and then all of a sudden you're paying white. You're white. You got plenty of attention on it then. And the other thing too is with in the last year and a half with me doing these charities, it's amazing to me how many people are turning their back on this because it's taboo. It's not a pretty subject. It's not something people want to discuss. And even in my situation, I didn't talk about it for 30 something years because I'm a tough cowboy. I don't want to talk about somebody beating me with a ball bat, raping me. I don't want to talk about those things. I didn't want to talk about killing a guy, which I didn't kill him, by the way, but I tried to. I mean, that's just not something, especially back in the late 80s, early 90s, or mid 80s, early 90s. You didn't talk about your feelings back then. If you did that, you were weak. Now, of course, a lot of that's changed now. Everybody wants to, trauma drop, but it's went from one extreme to the other. But at the same time, that's just not something we did back then.
Until I was doing these interviews, I didn't really realize, like, a lot of people, there's the misconception of trafficking, meaning like you're trying to import or export girls or boys in and out of a country, right? And that's really what I thought about it. But really, when parents are selling their kids or prostituting out their kids, for drugs or money or whatever it might be, I didn't realize that was also the definition of trafficking until I had met Rhea Story and Mary Kay Holmes, who is also often on Clubhouse. And I was like, wow. And I think that what you're doing is very commendable because it really is something that needs to get out there more because it's happening too much. And like you said, under our noses. I want to kind of go back to your your childhood before you ran away. And you were saving money, you were working really hard to save money to get bicycles because you didn't want to ride the bus anymore. And your mom took the money.
I wanted to earn money. I just had to earn money because we had to eat. And so I had went to the next door neighbor. The next door neighbor asked me to mow his grass, and he was going to pay me like $15 to do it. Well, as I was mowing his grass, another guy asked me to mow their grass, and so on and so on. So I didn't have a lawnmower, so I negotiated to use my neighbor's lawnmower and give him half the money. So I was only getting half the money anyway, and I was working my tail off to earn this money. And they're kind of, where we were living, most everybody was kind of deadbeats. I mean, just honestly, they all were. We all lived in a trailer house. They were very low income people, and they were not very ambitious in life is probably the best way to put it. So I was saving this money, and I was putting it in a big mason jar on top of the refrigerator, and I was all excited about, earning this money. And I worked almost the entire summer, just from the moment I'd get up in the morning until I went to school, and I'd come home after school, and I'd do it again. And I worked till dark, and I did every single day. And I earned it's like $380 something, I think it was. And I was so excited about the next day going. It was Friday, we had to go to school, and the next day on Saturday, I was going to go get these bicycles at Walmart or Kmart or whatever it was. And I come home that Friday afternoon, and I walked in, and of course, the first thing I always did was get ready to go mow grass. And I looked up, and the jar was empty. And I turned to my buddy. She was sitting on the couch smoking a cigarette. And I turned around and looked at her, and I was like, "Where's my money?" Well, she informed me that rent was due, and she needed the money for rent. And of course, I was upset, started crying, went to my bedroom, spent a couple of hours crying over it. But didn't go mow grass that day, and didn't follow through on my commitments that day. And I was really upset. Well, it was 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening, and my brothers were getting hungry, and it was time to cook. And so I come out of my bedroom, and I went to go to the kitchen, and I opened up the door, the door, and I mean, I can visualize it like it was yesterday. And I looked in there, and here there was a Tupperware bowl with those old shell noodles in it, sitting in water, which is what you had to do back in the day, soak them to get them from being hard for a long time. We didn't have microwaves and stuff like that back in the day. Or if we did, we didn't have one. And yeah. So, and to the right of that was a can of tomato paste, not tomato sauce, not like spaghetti sauce,
Right, right.
paste, like the paste, like you paste
Mhm.
a pizza with. And then then a stack of 4 or 5 boxes of brand new Virginia Slim 100 cigarettes. And cigarettes were still expensive back then.
Right.
And I tried to look to my mother and I said, and I pulled one of the boxes out and I said, what is this? And she said, well, honey, I have to have my cigarettes. And it just that was kind of like the beginning of the end. Of
Mhm.
course, I lost it and literally almost attacked her. I was so angry because I was just like, you can smoke a cigarette, you can do this, but you can't buy your kids food. You can't do what's right for your family. And you want to take the only thing that I had going for me, or the only thing I had going for my brothers. And I know telling my brothers we're going to get bikes the next day. So I had to face the disappointment of two young boys who were devastated because they didn't get bicycles.
Right.
And by the way, never had bicycles that I can recall.
Right.
So I had to face all that stuff. And as a 10, 11-year-old boy, and it was just too much. And I could feel myself becoming very dangerously angry. And it was time to go. So, that was kind of the beginning of the end. So I don't. So now, even to this day, I've never smoked a cigarette, and there's a lot of people smoke, and they don't smoke around me, and because I flat tell them, just get away from me. You're gonna smoke, go somewhere else. It's not that I'm trying to be mean to people. It's just a real tender subject with me.
Yeah. It's
And
that connection that you have in your mind, just what they have a different meaning for you.
yeah, and the sad part about it is that's a nasty thing anyway. People don't even
Right.
be doing it anyway. But especially when it's affecting your livelihood of your family. If you sit back and you think about how much people spend that are smoking, if how much they
Mhm.
spend on it, and then they want to use it that they have to have it. No, you don't have to have it. You choose to have it. And then not
Right.
only do you choose to have it, you choose to spend money that you could be doing something else with to better your life.
Right.
So I don't have any respect for it. None, not an ounce.
What went through your mind when you made that choice? I mean, I know it's a long time ago, but do you recall what went through your mind when you made that choice to leave, about your brothers being, you going without them?
Well, I mean, there's not, one of my brothers has committed suicide since then,
Right.
one of the two.
Right.
So there's not been a moment in time that went by that I don't have regret for that. It's not a moment in time, you know, but I'm smart enough now to understand that what I did was wise at the time. It was
Mhm.
hard, but no, there'll never be a moment goes by that I don't regret every ounce of that. Maybe my other brother would still be alive had I took him with me, or maybe all three of us would have been kidnapped and I'd have lost two of them to the sicko. There's just so many variables that I
Yeah.
think it comes down to, I have to say this. I'll tell you another real funny story. I was during the same time frame. I had a friend of mine named Frank Robert. He was mentally retarded. I know that's not the proper way to say it now, but I'm just country and that's
Oh,
the way I say it.
okay.
But he had a 72 or 73 or 74 IQ, and he literally was huge. He was like 6'4" and 250 pounds, and sweetest guy in the world. And we were best friends. And he just followed me around like a little puppy, and we just loved each other. Well, we found an old flat bottom boat in the grass, out in one of the fields or something. And we had a lake there called Stonewall Lake, and we always wanted to go out on this lake, but we didn't have boats or stuff like that. We see people out on boats, but they sure weren't
Mhm.
going to invite us. We were just poor old kids. So we found this old flat bottom boat, and we took it back to the house. We carried it back. We probably carried it like 2 miles. We carried it back. We sanded it down. We got it all ready. We painted it, and I don't even remember what it was, just old cans of spray paint we found. And we carried it all the way back to Stonewall Lake. And I'm telling you, we carried this thing miles. It wasn't a little bit. We carried it miles, and it took all day long to do it. So it was like this big undertaking to get this boat to this lake. And the lake was only a 15-acre lake. It wasn't big, but and me and Frank Robert, we crawled up in this boat, and we get out, I don't know, 200-300 feet out into the lake, and we're sitting up there, and we're just so happy we're on the lake. No life jackets, no paddles. We had a board in there, a little board that we could push but it was no paddles. And I didn't ever thought to ask Frank Robert if he could swim or not. Just that never crossed my mind. I could swim. That's all.
Right. Right.
So anyway, all of a sudden we're sitting there, and all of a sudden I look down and there's water in the bottom of the boat. And what happened is the boat was rusted in the little rust started popping and water started coming up in the boat. And next thing I know, the boat's halfway sunk. Within just a few minutes, the boat's halfway sunk. Frank Roberts sitting up in the boat. All of a sudden, he tells me he can't swim. I jump out of the boat. I start pulling the boat, tell Frank Roberts to sit there. I will pull us in. And I'm paddling, swimming as hard as I can. I probably swam for a good 6 or 7 minutes, hard, trying to drag us in. And then I noticed the boat got a little lighter. And I turned and looked back, and Frank Roberts wasn't there. So I swam back as fast as I could, and I started looking for him, and he's gone. Like, he's gone. I don't see him anywhere. Well, at the corner of my eye, I don't know how in the world I seen it, but at the corner of my eye, I saw he was wearing an orange fluorescent shirt. The only thing that saved his life. And about 10 foot down, his body was lifeless. And I dove down and I got him. And I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this in my life, but he was completely limpless. I mean, like limp, just dead. But the minute his face hit the water, or the air, excuse me, he come out of the, when I brought him up out of the water, the minute that air hit his face, I don't know what happened, but air went back to his body and he went to beating the living crap out of me. And he was a big old boy, and I was 150, 60 pounds at the time. He was beating, beat me so bad that he was drowning me. Now, listen, I've been swimming for 15 minutes now.
Right.
Now I got a 250-pound guy on top of me beating a fire at him because he's flailing for his life. I mean, I had no choice but to hit him and knock him off of me. I mean, I didn't have a choice. I like, this is him or me. So I pushed him off of me. And when I pushed him off of me, I don't know exactly what happened, but the boat came back to me. When I reached up and grabbed the boat so I could get some air, and he's still flailing around the water. When I reached in, I touched that board. And I reached up and grabbed that board and held the board out. He grabbed the board and I pulled him over to the boat. I finally get him back to the bank. And he literally I was pumping green stuff out of him. It was crazy thing we're saying, but he survived. But I learned a valuable lesson right then. And I think it could carry even to the stories you asked me about my two brothers. And the valuable lesson was I can't save everybody.
No.
And I saved him that time, or did I really? Because the last thing I did was hit him, knock him off of me. But did I really save myself? And I got lucky that when my hand went to touch the boat, it touched the board. Had I not touched the board, would I've ever thought to get the board? I don't know. Would he have just drowned? Maybe. But this time it worked.
Right.
But not every time.
That's lifeguarding 101 right there. You always have to have something to put in between you. However, at that point in time, you did not know that, but everything is perspective. I think when we inside tend to blame other people for what other people's choices are, what happened to your brothers in the law, like, that's not your fault. That's not something that you should carry around with you, that your brother committed suicide because you left. Personally, I mean, you were dealt the same deck of cards that they were, if not worse, right? Because then you tried to run away to do something better for yourself, and you ended up
in a worse situation.
So, I mean, really and truly, for you, I truly believe in divine providence and divine intervention. And for whatever reason, even when in the beginning of your book, you say that, you were going to take your life, and you got that phone call saying that your brother took his life in the moment that you were going to, right?
Literally, the literal moment. Yeah.
So
like literally the exact same second time.
So I don't know. I don't know that if you carry that with you or you feel that is your fault, but if you do, that's not your fault.
Yeah, I didn't pull the trigger. I'm smart enough to know that he did. But was it some sort of divine intervention? Probably. I mean, here's a kid that never been in any trouble in his life, had a pretty good little life, and all of a sudden with zero indication that he was going to do something like this, he takes his life at the exact same moment I'm doing it. So I don't know. There's some sort of divine intervention. There's some higher power, some reason. I don't know what it is, but I tell you what it did do. It set me on fire to make sure that I come back successful. It set me on fire to make sure that I didn't leave the way he left, and also didn't take what he had gone through in his life and throw it away by not accomplishing things and helping other people. So, so I hate my brother's gone, but
Of course.
him being gone, him being gone has given me an incredible drive to do what I'm doing today.
After you escaped, should say, from the preacher, the pastor, where you went to your father? That's correct?
No, I went to the Cody Ranch. I went to the,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, I went to a ranch, and I spent some time on the ranch. That's where I learned how to ride bulls, ride horses, and actually where I learned how to read and write. So,
Right.
yeah.
So up until you were, wow, at that age, you didn't really know how to read and write either. Wow.
As a matter of fact, I only had a year and a half of school. A lot of people don't know that, but I only had a year and a half of school. Now I went to school some when I was younger, but I don't remember any of it. I mean,
Right.
I don't remember any of that. I mean, I literally can't. I mean, only thing I can remember is the tragic memories of my childhood. You know, not getting bicycles, or the beatings, or the fights, or the strange things that happened. I cannot tell you a school I went to under the age of 11. I couldn't tell you to save my life. I would be dead if I had a gun in my face right now and they said, you got to name one school. I can't name it. I don't know. So really, I think the only education I ever received was when I come back to Tennessee, met my real father. I went to a private school. I went to a public school, but it didn't take me very long. I was not ready to be in a 2,000 or 3,000 people place after coming straight off of the chain. So they had to move me to a private school, smaller school. They made me test in. I failed, but there was a man there named Gary Coker, and Gary, he knew the story. Nobody else in the school knew the story, but Gary knew the story, and he just, he said, look, you flunked your test, and I'll never forget what he did. He says, I hear you're a pretty good baseball player. I was like, yeah, I'm okay. He said, come outside with me, play some catch with me. So we walked outside and we played catch, and I was pretty good, and he was an ex-pro catcher, and I was lighting him up, and because I was still had a lot of anger in me, and he walked back in. He said, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. He says, I'm gonna let you in school. He says, we were gonna start a baseball team. This is our first year at Dawson Christian start baseball team, and you're gonna play, and you're gonna work in the school, and you're gonna be a janitor here in the school, and you're gonna pay your tuition. And he says, and I'm going to tutor you on the side and teach you how to get through school. So I graduated and I passed with Gary Coker helping me on the side. I worked on the baseball field and built the baseball field, literally built the baseball field. And there was other people that participated too, but I was a huge part of it. And I worked at night as a janitor at the school. And the funny thing about it is a lot of people knew it but didn't know it. As a matter of fact, on Clubhouse, how we met, there's a guy named Keith Gober who I actually went to high school with. And he knew all these backstories, but didn't correlate it all together until recently when he heard the whole story. Then all the stuff that was happening when we were a kid started making perfect sense. Because he actually would work with me at night some. He worked for me. I was in high school, and Keith Gober worked for me in my landscaping company, and I would lay sod and mow grass and stuff at night so I could go to school. After I get done with the janitorial stuff at school, I would leave out and go lay sod and landscape, and I'd do it by headlights on my truck. And I'd done all the Quaker State and Pennzoils and stuff all over Nashville. And I did that my senior year in high school. And Keith Gober worked for me. So he heard these stories, and everything started fitting together. But I think the work ethic has just been natural because I didn't ever want to go back to a chain.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, because, and it's quite remarkable because you weren't only going to school and playing baseball. You were going to school, playing baseball, working in the morning as well, correct?
Yeah.
And then you were studying, playing baseball, and you were riding bull on the weekends. Like, I mean, the drop, like, I am just so curious of that inner drive, but I guess maybe it's just what you just said. Like, you never wanted to go back to the chains. Maybe that's what gave you that inner.
Well,
push.
I think there was something, a lot of people ask me all the time, how do you do what you do? How do you know what you know, and how do you do what you do? And the answer is, I don't know. But there, and not to be strange, because I'm really not a strange person. I'm a very simple person. But there was a time that when I was on the chains that I think that's why I call it the Enlightened Years. because there was a time I was on the chain where there was a spider. I think I tell the story in the book. There was a spider, and I think there's two types of people in the world. There's the type of person that sees a spider and goes, it steps on it. And then there's the type of person that sees a spider and goes, oh, it's so cute, puts it in the grass, it's part of nature. But there's really no in-betweens on it. So I think I got to lay there and watch a spider for 5 years. He didn't live 5 years, but it was 3.5, 4 years he was there. And I got to watch him go from a wee bitty spider to a big old spider. And I got to watch the things that the spider did. And it was like, how in the world does it know how to build a web that way 3 days before the wind blows that way? How does it know that? How does it know, how does it keep the predators that are after it, which was constant, birds are coming in the building, barn, everything else, or constant predators after it, but yet be a predator itself, and capture and attack and it see, not only see behind it, but see what's at it targeted at the same time. And I think what happened is I started learning processes. I started learning strategy. And I think from this little situation, I think I was being downloaded with information just on how to be in the moment, pay attention to what's happened to you, and work the process. And not worry about the future and not worry about the past. Just focus on this. Because if you take the experience of your past, this is a Scott Lumley quote, but if you take your experience of your past and you live in the moment, that becomes your future. And a lot of people want to think about their future. Okay, and especially if you're writing to book kids right now, let me go tell you, there's no 12-year-old to no 90-year-old that knows that knows where they're going to be at. I don't care. You're not supposed to. And you're 20 years old, 18 years old. You don't know, and you will never know until you've already done it. So quit putting pressure on yourself thinking you have to know you're going to be a doctor someday. You have to know that you're going to be this. No, you don't have to know that. Mm-hmm. What you have to do is live in the moment and do the best you can at that moment. And then that, if you're supposed to be that, that's what will happen. If not, something will change the course every time. So trying to have it figured out is just not even, it's just don't even make sense.
Yeah.
Because nobody has it figured out. And that spider did, but it strategized. It strategized every move it made. And I watched this for years and years and years. How in the world did it get a web all across the building? I never figured that out. It never moved, but it got us a web all across the building. So, how does that happen? So, unless it was when I was asleep, it was sneaky. I don't know how it happened. But anyway, I think all those things gave me the ability to be able to see things and look at it differently than other people look at it. And I think that's the reason why I've had success in business. And I've had failures too. But the failures didn't matter to me. I don't care. To me, failures are almost funny. It's almost exciting in a way because I get to recourse then.
I think the thing is, if you look at it, and again, a lot of things have to do with perspective. A lot of people see failure and they're like, oh my God, I did all this. And however, if you've gone through quite a few failures, then you tend to know that the other side of those failures has always been something bigger and better than what you had before. And it's almost exciting in a way.
Well, if you're at a fork in the road, take it. It's that simple. You're at a fork in the road, just take it. There's really not, it's a fork, take it. It doesn't really matter. So, there's no right or wrong.
Right.
And I think that's the way you have to approach things. I think that's, these situations have put me in that situation where I approach it like that now.
Now, when you were chained in this bar, like you were never let unchained?
No, there was some times I was let free. It was very, very rarely, but there were some times I was let free. I think it was just more to parade me around. But when you're at that, this was when I was younger. As I got older, no, because I was big and strong then. But this is when I was young and I was frail and scared. When he could
parade you around to whom?
Well, everywhere. So, he was a preacher. So, yeah. I'm not going to share too much more. I want people to see it in my book.
No. That's okay. That's okay. You don't need to give me the details. And of course, yes. I'm almost like, so it wasn't really until you were to a point where you were strong enough or knew enough that you could possibly escape that he kind of kept.
Yeah, that's when it stopped. That's when I was locked down. When I become, I was vicious. But when I hit 14, 15 years, I was vicious. I was 180 pounds. I mean, you see, I'm no small guy.
Right.
I was 180 pounds, and I was an incredible athlete. And yeah, so I was waiting for my moment.
Okay. Last question on that one. And so when he stopped parading you around, or you didn't come, nobody questioned where you went.
Who's going to question the preachers?
Right.
I mean, we haven't been questioning.
I know.
We haven't been questioning our Catholic priests for a long time now, have we?
You in your book spoke about how Generation X gave too much to the millennials, and so now they're not being accountable or responsible for their actions. Lack of respect.
Well, the cool thing about that is I predicted it, and I've predicted this right here when I wrote that book. And now look what's happening on Clubhouse. You're seeing. I guess I need to let you finish your question first. But
no, that's okay, because you can. This is kind of where it's going, and then I want to know what you think, what your thoughts are on Generation Z.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening here is the millennial generation is an absolute beautifully intelligent generation. Their ability to create, their ability to produce shortcuts in making money. I mean, it's amazing, but they don't have any experience, and they don't have any practical knowledge of business. And they're not going to, well, there's a few that will, but the majority will not win in the end because they don't have the foundation for it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's our fault because, when we were out working, building our foundations,
Mm-hmm.
We threw them the Xboxes, the PlayStations and all that stuff as a babysitter, as a pacifier. Mm-hmm. And guess what? They just took those things and took them and migrated them into computer systems, migrated them into softwares and apps. And now all this amazing tech stuff that you see, all these amazing platforms, gaming platforms. And now they got the NFT, the NFT and the non-fungible tokens, and they're creating all this digital currency. I mean, they've just done so much. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. But now what's happening is they're getting to the point now where it's become a business. And they're like, uh-oh, now what do we do? So now you're seeing my generation come up and go, okay, let us show you how to fix this. And you're seeing my generation and the millennial generation starting to join forces. Mm-hmm. And that's going to become a superpower generation next, because the next generation comes out. They're not only going to have the experience, but they're going to have the technical and the creative side, because now it's okay to be creative. It used to be taboo to be creative. Mm-hmm. Now it's okay to be creative.
Right.
And it used to be taboo to share your feelings. Now everybody shares their feelings. Yeah. So oversharing, as a matter of fact. So I think yes, I think that it's because, but when I wrote the book, it wasn't like that at all. When I wrote the book, they were not doing those things. Mm-hmm. They were literally still had the pacifier in their mouth, and they weren't listening to anything we said. Mm-hmm. I can say, no, son, don't do that, or this is not. Listen, this is the result you're going to get out of this from experience. But they wouldn't listen to it, and guess what? They shouldn't have listened to us, because we weren't listening to them when they were sitting on the couch playing on Xboxes and stuff. We weren't paying attention to them, so why should they pay attention to us?
Right. That's true. Good point. Good point there. What do you think about the generation of teens that are today, which they are calling Gen Z? What do you feel about that that group of the teens of today? If you have an opinion on.
Well, I think we're paying a little more attention to our kids than we ever have, than we have in the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. So I got much more hope for this next generation than I had for the past two, mm-hmm. including my own. I feel like my generation, we abandoned our kids, and the next generation, we pacified our kids. So mm-hmm. I'm hoping that maybe there'll be a little better blend in this next wave. I do think that they're going to be a much more intelligent group. I think that you're able to download so much more information than you ever have before in such a high speed. Mm-hmm. And I think education is what I don't say education. I know. Let me back up. I don't think education. Well, I think information mm-hmm. is how you level the playing field of your life. The more information you have, the better you can process it. The better you can get results. I do not believe in a formal education. As a matter of fact, I despise a formal education. Mm-hmm. So I would never suggest a child to go to college. I think that there's a place for it. Mm-hmm. if the kid needs discipline, if he needs structure, okay, maybe. But if he's trying to become the next Bill Gates, absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Well, I think now that with technology and everything we have seen and how many people, I mean, I can't tell you, I think the majority of people that I have interviewed at this moment did not go to college. Did not.
Well, here's the thing. Successful people go through hard things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they learn to navigate through those hard things. If you don't have tragedy, or not tragedy, but if you don't have problems coming at you, then you don't have opportunities to solve them. If you don't have opportunities to solve them, you don't get the education. You get the education, then you can go do something with it.
Right.
And the reason why my business consulting has done so well is not because I'm successful at all. They come to me because they have problems. They come to me because I've been through problems. They don't come to me to find out how to do X, Y, Z to make another $1 million. They come to me as, hey, here's my problem. They're trying to take my $1 million. Here's my problem. I don't know how to fix this. It's going to cost me $1 million. So the expertise that I have now is in the problems, and it's vast. So because there's been a lot of problems. And that's slowed down as I've gotten older because I don't do as much as I used to do. I was always swinging for the fences.
Right.
And sometimes, when you swing for the fences, you get strikeouts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but you keep swinging. That's the whole thing. You keep swinging. And
well, I'm shooting for more singles now.
Yeah. Right. Line drives.
Line drive singles. Line drive singles. I'm fine with that now.
All right.
I don't have to be the big bad boy no more.
Right. Okay. So I want to end with two things. One, how do you define success? What is your definition of success?
If you can put your feet on the ground, the first thing when you wake up in the morning, there's a smile come on your face, you're successful.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And
it ain't got nothing to do with the checkbook. Nothing at all.
I hear you right there. I agree with you. That's the best.
But here's the thing. But here's what people automatically think when somebody says that. Oh, it's because you have money. The truth of the matter is money has never done anything that would cause me problems ever. Right. Now, money is not evil. People are evil. Money's good. I love money. But if you can take and sit up on the side of the bed and do your half a push-up each day, as your feet hit the ground, and you can smile, and man, you're successful.
I agree with you there. 100% in agreement with that. So if you could change one child's life right now with your words at this moment, someone who may be going through exactly what you went through as a teen, as a child, what words would you choose?
1 more minute. See, when I was spinning that chain in my teeth were grinding away. The chain wasn't breaking. Didn't look like it had a scratch on it. 500 days later, I picked that chain up and I spun it and I thought, this ain't never going to happen. And it broke. And I often thought, if I had not done that for 1 more minute, what would have happened? So if you're waking up every day and you don't know exactly what you should do, then just do whatever you are doing for 1 more minute. It'll come to you. It always does.